Okay, welcome back to the broadcast. Earlier we were doing a vertical stream, but I want to see if I'm just testing something out here to see if you guys are seeing this in vertical and you guys are also seeing this on horizontal. So if you guys are indeed watching this right now, let's look at this for a moment, and we're going to then transition over to a horizontal format, and hopefully we can then uh, get you guys watching in that format because it's better to read. We're able to look at those messages side by side. We're able to look at me and my reaction versus the letter, and it's going to be in a bigger format. So in this sort of scenario here, it's going to be a lot harder for you to understand or actually read along with me if that's if that is indeed your intention. So hopefully you guys are seeing this clip, seeing this video. Let me know in the chat if that's something that you are willing to do, that we can then go on and look at all that information in a horizontal format so that it's easier and more legible than it is on vertical. So what are your guys' thoughts on that? Please let me know what that looks like for you guys as to if this will be a better format for you guys, if it's horizontal or vertical, whatever the case may be. And we can get on with the live show. And so if you're just joining into the podcast, we're going to be analyzing this letter from Charlie Kirk to the Prime Minister of Israel. And this is interesting because this came out just recently, and there's so many people already beginning to cover this. A lot of vetted sources that are taking a look at this, analyzing this, and hopefully we can get a better understanding as to what this means, what he was intending to communicate with this letter. And so, however, let's just continue on here and let's see exactly who joins in and see again the audience that we can communicate this to, so that we can figure out if we need to do this in vertical format or horizontal. So if you're joining into the podcast, let me know where you are watching from. So I see one of you is in here. I want to make sure that is actually correct and not just somebody random, but otherwise, if you're just joining the stream, thanks so much for being here. Let's continue on with the letter of what we were watching earlier. And I was going horizontal format to see if anybody would join in that format so we can have a side-by-side comparison. If that is easier for you to, if that would be easier for you guys to see the letter in more detail, we can do that. We can switch over. However, I just want to know for those who might be in the chat or who might not be in the chat. I'm not sure if YouTube is playing games here. So I just want to know your thoughts on that. So this is, of course, the letter that is in front of you of what you're seeing. This is from the desk of Charlie Kirk. Now, where this letter, I haven't found the original, the where this letter originated from, in the sense that who posted this first. I saw it on an X post. And of course, there are some of people that are messaging me regarding this letter, and now we're covering it on this live show. So if you guys are just joining in, thanks so much for being here. We're going to be reading this letter from Charlie Kirk to the Prime Minister of Israel, and this is really talking about some of the misinformation or the information war that Israel continues to fight on the daily. So I did want to mention that if this is a better format for you to listen in, or if horizontal would be a better format for you guys to join in and switch over. But otherwise, let's start reading the letter, and then we can get your thoughts later. So this is, Dear Prime Minister, one of my greatest joys as a Christian is advocating for Israel and forming alliances with Jews in the fight to protect Judeo-Christian civilization. Now, for those who are in the chat, have you guys been... have you guys seen this? Have you guys read this at all? This is kind of my reaction to this letter, and to this extent. And so we're kind of looking through it and analyzing it for a first time. So curious to know your guys' thoughts if you guys have read this letter or not. It says, most recently, I'm proud to have taken over Ambassador Huckabee's show on TBN, where we continually support Israel and the Jewish people. It said as Mohammedanism spreads into Western societies, this is something that he often spoke about. It says it's critical that Jews and Christians stay united in the effort to contain and roll back radical Islam and Sharia law. I regret to report that the anti-Israeli or anti-Israel and anti-Semitic trends are at a record levels on social media. These negative sentiments then flow downstream into college campuses and even seep into the conservative MAGA community. My team and I have spent months analyzing these trends and debating ideas that could help you and your country push back against these disturbing developments. Now, mind you, Charlie Kirk kept a very Israeli-centered mindset when it comes to his views concerning the Bible. The scriptures tell us in Genesis 12:3. Now, people will say this is in context of Abraham, but Abraham was given the blessing of becoming a nation. And so those who would bless him would be blessed, and those who would curse him would be cursed. And so a lot of people are saying that this is not even scripture as to what Benjamin Netanyahu shared. However, that is not correct. It is in scripture. It is in Genesis 12:3. And this is what we see regarding the blessing. And feel free to let me know in the chat what you guys think according to that verse. But let's continue on in this letter to Charlie Kirk, or letter from Charlie Kirk to the Prime Minister of Israel. This goes along with a lot of the misinformation or the information war that is going out there regarding the genocide on Israel's part, committing genocide against the Palestinians. So I'd like to know your guys' thoughts. It says, my team and I have spent months. Okay, so we already went over that. They're pushing back, helping to see if they can push back on these disturbing developments, helping the Israeli government. So it says anti-Israel sentiment. Now, mind you, this is on the pinnacle of everybody saying that just because Charlie's comments on the PBD podcast or whatever it was that he said, that he was beginning to talk against the Israeli government. Now, this letter seems to prove otherwise, that he still had the love for Israel that he always shared. However, even if he wasn't directly agreeing with the government and everything that they stood for, everything that we're doing, he wasn't defending every single point. However, he was having to fact check these things, and we'll see in this letter. So let's continue on. It says, anti-Israeli sentiment can determine American support for Israel. The purpose of this letter is to lay out our concerns and outline potential remedies. Everything written here is from a place of deep love for Israel and the Jewish people. I think it's important to be brutally honest with those you love. In my opinion, Israel is losing the information war and needs a communication intervention. Now, he will begin to propose some ideas to them, and it seems as though Netanyahu was pushing or starting to move in that direction. So it's interesting. What will be interesting is to see all this, what happens after this letter, the sort of repercussions of this going on. So let's continue on here. It says, I started to compose this letter to you on Easter. I should have been focused on my family, but I was getting bombarded with messages about the Israeli army making it difficult for Christians to access church in Jerusalem on Easter. At this time, now, mind you, this is, of course, when it comes to religion or the practice of religion in Jerusalem, this is a very hot thing when it comes to sort of the geopolitics and the political landscape there, and on this sort of worship of Christianity or Judaism, because when it comes to the Golden Dome and the sort of political sphere, the political tension that is there, it causes a lot of things to prevent an escalation of any type of war between the Waqf and anything else that may escalate something to a higher degree, which is something that they're trying to avoid. So this could be why they were. I don't know. That's just a thought, right? We always see that there's always pushback against any type of worship from the Jews or Christians, where they can't pray, they can't look like they're praying. This is more specifically on the Temple Mount, so I'd like to know your guys' thoughts on that. But it says here, at the time, I did not see any official statements pushing back on this narrative. It was frustrating because pro-Israel surrogates like me should not be in charge of fact-checking every piece of anti-Israel misinformation that pours into social media. It wasn't just Easter. On my recent campus tours, half the questions I get are about Israel, and they're all negative. I've often spent half my time on these campus tours defending Jews and Israel, which I'm proud to do because I love Israel and I love the Jewish faith. I spent endless hours with Dennis Prager over the years studying the Torah. Sometimes it feels like I'm defending Israel in public more than your own government. Wow, that is interesting. He feels like he's defending Israel. And there is some instances of Israel defending their position with some of their social media posts on either Instagram or on YouTube. But there is no sort of mass campaign to debunk each of these lies and how we can get better information than just the information that is available for us currently. And so he's striving to do that. And he's going to then propose some more information on how they can go about doing that and being better equipped to combat any of these terrible misrepresentations, or in his words, misinformation. My experience on college campuses match a recent Harvard-Harris poll, which reported 48% of 18 to 24-year-old Americans support Hamas over Israel. Even in young MAGA circles, Israel is losing support. We are getting huge crowds of 4,000 to 5,000 students on some of my college tours. My campus visits are becoming like a rock concert atmosphere filled with conservative patriots. Yet on these campus visits, I'm continually confronted with, and these are the top questions that are generally asked, which if you've ever listened to any of his debates in full length, a lot of the questions are concerning Israel and Gaza and the war that is happening there when it comes to genocide. That's typically the main topic there. It says, what do you call to... I'm not going to read that out. So it says, who cooks in a... Okay, why is that even going on? This is nonsense. See, that's the nonsense that continues to happen on these messages here, and that's why we need to see evil elements on both sides. I think we can all agree. Elaborate more, Mark. I'd like to know more of your thoughts on that. Have you read this letter? Have you read anything of this? Have you heard anything of this? And also, I'd like to know your thoughts on when you say evil elements on both sides, which can be the case in many instances, right? If there's things being done, like some people had shared some of the, actually in an email that I received was people talking about, or this person talking about the heinous acts done by IDF soldiers, which of course, anything that is done by any soldier or any IDF soldier, American soldier, anything that is actively doing things. I guess I can't even really explain it on the podcast because it might flag the video. However, you might know the stories, and there's also stories on the other side of Hamas and what they do, and or Palestinians. So that's just one thought there. So let's continue on here. It says, these are the questions here, or the statements even. Israel is an apartheid state. Why does Israel conduct ethnic cleansing? Why is America subsidizing Israel's genocide against the Palestinian people? Is American aid helping to subsidize Israel's free healthcare? Israel and the Jews are running U.S. foreign policy. That's a big one. Everyone is on this side of the Jews running everything in the U.S. foreign policy, or even Hollywood, or whatever the case is. And that might be the case in some of you here on this chat. So it says Israel and the Jews are running U.S. foreign policy. That's one of them, the one I just read. It says Israel and Jews are responsible for 9/11. That is one most recently where people are saying Charlie Kirk 9/10 and the Jews, right? The Jews in Charlie Kirk 9/10, it says, and then also the Jews in 9/11. So that's also one of them. It says defending Israel. And it's not something of a new thing, of course. If he's getting them on these campus visits, then most certainly it has been an ongoing mindset, an ongoing thought that Israel was behind this. And so it says defending Israel is not in our U.S. national interests. It says, why is Israel trying to drag us into the Middle East war, or into the Middle East? And so continuing on here, it says above are just a sampling of the negative Israel and Jewish comments and questions I confront on campus colleges or college campuses. I'm accused of being a paid apologist for Israel when I'm defending her. However, if I don't defend Israel strongly enough, I'm accused of being anti-Semitic. I know you've got a 7-front war on my, I'm not sure what the, kvetching? I'm not sure how to pronounce that. Wow, that is a word I do not know. Kvetching pales in comparison. What word is that? Does anybody know what the heck that even means? I don't even know what that is. Let me look that up because I'm ignorant in whatever kvetching is. So this is information. What is this? There's not even a definition here. To squeeze, to press. Interesting. Maybe he's using a Jewish word there. And my stretching pales in comparison, or my what? What else? Yeah, I don't know. I'm not sure. Does anybody know what that means? I'd like to know. So anyway, so it says here, I know you've got, okay, so it says, but I'm trying to convey to you that Israel is losing support even in conservative circles. This should be a 5-alarm fire. I'm often asked why is Israel killing so many innocent civilians in Gaza? And that is indeed a big concern with many people who are analyzing this situation, and they're taking a look and they're saying, why are they committing so much genocide when it comes to this war? Kvetching is Yiddish. It means complaining or ranting. Thank you, Zekvo. All right, appreciate that. It's like complaining or the other word. I'm not going to read it on the air. But thank you for putting the asterisk there. Yeah, so those who are complaining about my, or kvetching about my reading, the text that I'm reading is very small. So what I'm reading might be, my eyes are being deceived into thinking it's another word when it's not. But otherwise, it seems that I'm correct in that word. I'm not sure if the pronunciation is correct, kvetching, but otherwise, I've never heard of that I've never heard of that word. So that's a first. So anyway, if you guys don't like my reading, feel free to leave. That's fine. And so, and it says here, I'm accused, it says, but I'm trying to convey to you that Israel is losing support even, I already read that. Let me see, where am I? Yeah, okay. It says, I'm often asked, why is Israel killing so many innocent civilians in Gaza? I know Israel goes to great lengths by dropping leaflet flyers. This is what he's referring to. And people say, well, okay, so they dropped leaflet flyers. Okay, so what? You know, that doesn't mean anything. However, no other military does that prior to any sort of attack that they're planning to do when it comes to warfare. And Israel's, I wouldn't say one of the first. However, they're known to do this when they're going to conduct a strike or something in that manner. And it says here, and calling civilians to clear out areas that are about to be bombed. It says, I know Israel posts maps showing which areas should be evacuated. I know that Hamas uses civilians as human shields, which people often debate about this, and they say, well, no, they're not using this because Hamas has never said that. However, when we looked at a CNN interview, the Hamas official did not deny them being used or them utilizing any Palestinians as shields, human shields. The question or the answer was danced around his question. So he didn't really answer directly. Yiddish is a mix of Hebrew and German. Thank you so much, Alexandra. I appreciate that for the clarification there. And so continue on here. It says, but 90% of the younger generations get their news from social media and podcasts, and there is very little pushback or fact-checking by the Israeli government or pro-Israel supporters in the media, especially social media. You say it's basically German with Hebrew letters. Most Germans hear it like an alternate dialect of their language. Interesting. It's so continuing on here. It says, I strongly suggest Israel not always depend on subcontracting their information war efforts to surrogates in America. Mr. Prime Minister, I urge you to revamp your information warfare strategy from top to bottom. Now, it is key to understand that that Hamas officials have continually claimed victory in the information warfare that is going out throughout the globe. that they're winning this information warfare against Israel. We see this, the marching in the streets for Palestine. We're seeing the marching in the streets for, or the support for Hamas. We're seeing the support for Hezbollah or the Houthis. It's mostly surrounded Hamas and Palestinians. However, they are indeed winning that information warfare, and Israel is doing little to combat any of that information or any of the misinformation that might be happening. What we see on social media and other outlets that are reporting this. It says, Mr. Prime, actually, already read that. It says, sometimes the impression is given that Israel thinks everyone hates them, so why care about winning over hearts and minds? And it says, if there's any truth to this impression, I urge you to consider that social media and podcasts is where you fight for the hearts and minds of the younger generation. Obviously, all this negative Israel propaganda on social media easily translates into pro-Hamas, free Palestine sentiment on many college campuses. Here are some unsolicited recommendations my team and I suggest if you are open-minded to a communication reset. Somebody said they are both guilty, both terrorists. Now, I don't believe that to be true, just on my opinion. They weren't at war prior to October the 7th, and they're only trying to get back their hostages, but now they're having to actively, strategically fight Hamas when they continue to place their weapons, their basements or their bases, their base of operations in schools or near schools, in underground hospitals, underground terror tunnels. So the way that Israel has to strike has to be strategic. And so this is why we see a complete sort of obliteration of the area of Gaza, where it looks like an absolute war zone. Because this is how they built their infrastructure. They built it underground. And so they have to use these incredible bombs in order to get deep down, in order to infiltrate or in order to destroy any type of tunnels that they may be hiding in. And so who wrote this? This would be Charlie Kirk who wrote this. This was prior to his passing. It looks like it just came out public. Get hostages back. You're kidding. They still have hostages. The lengths that Israel goes to get back their people is great lengths. And in the instance of some of the ways that they've done that is they're willing to trade. There's always negotiations that continue to happen. However, Hamas does not want to come to the negotiation table. We've seen this in the CNN interview. We've seen this in the way they conduct themselves at the UN. The sort of protesting that they do and walking out and not hearing the other side. So there is no negotiation strategy or rather no negotiations that Hamas wants to forfeit to by laying up their arms, by anything. And this has been an ongoing. There's always negotiations happening. It's not this one-time thing because Trump has now gotten involved. There's always been negotiations because we're living in America. We're not going to see every single negotiation piece that goes out to Hamas, unless you're watching or actively engaging in Israeli politics. However, the lengths that they'll go back to is they're willing to trade thousands, hundreds of thousands. I say hundreds, or if not thousands, rather, that's the more correct term. Hundreds, if not thousands, of Palestinian prisoners, those who have attacked or done terrorist attacks to the Jewish people. They're willing to release hundreds or thousands in the return of one body, or in the return of a couple of bodies, dead or alive. And so the lengths that they're willing to go through to compromise their security, in the sense that these Yahya Sinwar was one that was actually captured and released, and as part of one of these deals, to negotiate with Hamas for one of their people. And what did Yahya Sinwar do? He went and turned around and conducted one of the most crazy attacks on Israel, which was October the 7th. I don't know if you knew that. So, by the way, those that are just saying, they're just posting emojis, clown, or this idiot, or whatever, actually have something to debate about. Write your comments, be thorough about it, and so we can talk about it rather than just calling people's names just because calling people names. So I keep saying calling people's names instead of just doing that. We can actually have a dialogue about this and be productive and not just being trolls on the chat. So hopefully you can come to your senses and communicate effectively so we can talk about these different matters. So as we continue on here, let's go on with the rest. I'm trying to get to the page I was at. Let's go on to the, let's see. Okay, so here are some unsolicited recommendations my team and I suggest if you're open-minded to a communication reset. So for starters, you need a rapid response media team. President Trump does this very effectively on social media with his own account and his White House Rapid Response 47 team. The president has strong fighters like Stephen Miller and Caroline Levitt who battle the press every day. Honestly, I don't even know if you have a press secretary. It says you are eloquent. You are an eloquent defender of Israel, but you need a team of information warriors who out there pushing back every day. Somebody said, hi, things did not start on October the 7th. The state was policing on Palestinians for long. Now, look, we can go back through the history of the many times that the Palestinians have conducted terrorist attacks on innocent civilians, innocent Israeli civilians, like opening fire on many of the occasions, opening fire onto Israeli civilians. There's so many videos that you can go through and look at in the past when it comes to this, and this is why. Yeah, you're right. It did not just start on October the 7th. However, there was no official war to the extent that we see today, where the amount of rockets that came in, the amount of and the new wars that they were forced to be involved in, Israel that is, to combat all sides of the Ring of Fire. So Israel, or Iran being the head of the octopus, funding Hamas terrorists, funding Yemeni Houthi terrorists, and then funding, of course, the terrorists in Gaza, and many other proxies that we see that are attacking Israel on this front. And so, yes, they are fighting a seven war front footing here on this very day. And so those who are just joining the podcast, I'd like to know your thoughts in the chat so we can discuss them. It says also, have some humanity. You guys often complain about deaths in Gaza, but Israelis dying doesn't matter to you. Is it a joke to you? Take good look in this matter. Absolutely. We need to look at both sides and realize that death, the casualties as a result of this war is absolutely terrible, because there's many people that are innocent, that are just Stacy, shalom, welcome to the podcast. Thank you for being here. There's many of those that are unfortunately being harmed as a result of this war, and they may have nothing to do with wanting to support Hamas, but it seems like the general consensus, and I could be wrong, the general consensus of the Palestinian population is they are for Hamas and what they're doing. However, in some instances, we see very few of Palestinians that are speaking out against this matter, where they don't agree with what Hamas is doing and they want to change in leadership. But they've been in power ever since 2005, I want to say. You say you can't compare attacks by Hamas with the military might of the IDF, backed by America, who have had Palestine living in an apartheid state for decades. Look, we have to understand that it's not just against the attacks on Hamas. Mind you, who funds these terrorist organizations? Iran. They have some of the most sophisticated ballistic missiles technology that they fund these terrorist groups in order to conduct their operations. And not only that, was Hamas ripping out the the water tubes underground to make rocket launchers out of these to fire into Israel as part of the distraction to bring in the gliders or the paragliders to attack from then on, right? And not only that, there's been many instances like Hezbollah, them fighting the war front over there on the northern Israeli border, where they're constantly firing rockets into, and Hezbollah is also even more so a more advanced militia than Hamas is. So comparing the two, we've got one big nation that is funding all these proxies, Iran. Not only that, is Qatar funding these proxies, and even so, we have to look at the type of technologies that are being utilized against the Israeli people, and Iran is funding them heavily, and Russia and Iran colluding with some of these, in some of these instances. Somebody said there is no apartheid. Moro says Israeli Arabs have full equal rights in Israel and serve in the Israeli government, IDF, and general public. How is that an apartheid? You're right. You're absolutely right. You said you're willing to have a decent conversation. Hence, sorry if I'm giving too many comments. I want others to partake in the discussion as well. So I have one more comment I will give. Well, look, I'm glad, Middle Earth, Aurora. So I'm glad that you're actually participating in this matter. So it's good that you're commenting and listening. And I will be willing to listen to you as I read out your comments and hear you out. And so some will agree that it's not an apartheid state. Some will agree that it is. But you're right. Stacy also said Arabs live here, live very happy here. Actually, one of the most, what would you say, not popular banks or the biggest banks in Israel is actually owned by an Arab, and he's living very wealthy. If you are for real, get the hell out of America, Nick Franklin. For real about what exactly? Be more specific. Don't just be vague. This is a lie. Israelis and Palestinians don't have the same right. Do Palestinian Arabs have those rights? Yes, they do. Yes, they do. There's a video that is very hard to find, and it's of it's from the EU Parliament, I want to say, and they're talking about this very specific thing of Palestinians that thrive under Israeli control, in the sense that when they live in Israel, when they live even if they work there, they're treated like every other civilian. And those living in Israel will tell you most certainly so. Is this guy defending Israel? I will come to the defense of Israel when it's necessary, in the sense that if we have to fact check bad information, then we will do so. However, what we're reading here is a letter from Charlie Kirk to the Prime Minister, who's talking about an information war campaign where they're losing this information war. You say, I think this war showed how ruthless AI use in war can be. The destruction has been immense, and too many journalists and children died. We all saw images, too much blood, too much destruction. So you're right in the sense that AI being utilized in this war, there was a lot of AI images of being generated of Palestinian children, of Palestinian families, and these were easily debunked right away. So there is a lot of that type of warfare going on. And when it comes to the journalists and children dying, this is only as of recent that I'm hearing about people mentioning journalists and children. It seems to be growing more and more as a sort of talking point. And so I'm curious to know your guys' thoughts as to what you guys are thinking when it comes to this information there. Somebody said, oh no, not this guy again. Okay, buddy, I'm a Palestinian with family with Israeli passports. They're not treated the same. Well, share more. I'd like to know more. Some are saying not, some are saying yes. So you're saying your family with Israeli passports. Do you live in Israel? Do you live in Gaza? Where do you live? Do you live in America? Obviously don't give specifics. I don't want your safety to be compromised or anything like that. But otherwise, what can you tell me about this statement that you just made? Got it. There's also that front regarding Lavender AI, or that technology using Lavender AI. Now, I'd like to know more about that. Just mention in the comments so we can read over it. But it says it is a Jewish state, but Italy is a Christian state. Is there an apartheid in Italy against Jews or Muslims or Buddhists or Hindus? Your argument is heavily flawed. It says hundreds of Israeli towns use admission committees to screen residents based on social suitability, a practice observers say is used to execute Palestinian or exclude Palestine, not execute, exclude Palestinian civilians. The party told you to reject the evidence of your eyes and ears. Somebody said they're not treated the same. I've personally been told by Jews who live there that Palestinians can't go to the same stores. I've never heard that before. And less government funding for schools and municipalities. The Jerusalem Post had an article boosting this. It says this is the first AI war, and they are destroying things in seconds. I live in Israel and am a dual Israeli and American citizen. They are treated the same. My mom works as a speech therapist, and she works together with Arabs, Druze, Israelis, all treated are the same. Even in the healthcare system, they're all treated just the same. Again, as I mentioned before, Yahya Sinwar was treated for, I think, a tumor in his brain or something like that. And he was put later into the Israeli prisons, and he was then released after a hostage negotiation where they traded for, I don't know, very few Israelis for thousands of Palestinians, and in that they got in that trade, they got October the 7th. He was one of the main masterminds behind this. So let's continue on reading as well keep going through your comments here. So it says, I strongly recommend putting together a team of pro-Israel experts who can fact-check misinformation in real time from Israel. Israel needs to take the lead in this effort. No more dependence on subcontractors. Israel never asks for American troops because Israel does its own fighting. I suggest the same approach for the information war. You lead, the people like me will you lead, and people like me will follow and provide supplemental support. If you're open to revamping your communication strategy, my team and I are happy to assist. It says you need something perhaps like an Israel Truth Network, ITN. It says which can include social media channels and a one-stop source for information website where, for example, all the negative Israeli questions or Israel questions, I can be thorough. I can get, Israel questions I get can be thoroughly debunked. Let me see here. It says, got it. Let me reread that because that was a butcher of the sentence. It says, all the negative Israel questions I get can be thoroughly debunked. I would love to refer students to such a website. This website could also be a conduit to groups like Hillel and Jewish educators like Dennis Prager. There can be links to books, podcasts, media personalities, and pro-Israel thought leaders. The website can be a place where Judeo-Christian leaders and groups can share information and form closer alliances in the fight against Islamic fundamentalism. ITN social media can post pro-Israel, pro-Judeo-Christian video clips, breaking news, and articles. ITN could potentially be a news aggregation site for all news pertaining to Israel and Judeo-Christian efforts to preserve Western civilization. Now that is a quite a huge step towards something that would most certainly help a lot of this information that is coming out when it comes to this war. Now, will that still be fulfilled? Because Erica Kirk now taking on the role of CEO of Turning Point USA, will this be still going forward? I would love to see that happen. So it says here, ITN social media. Let's see. So it says, have you considered inviting some of the released hostages to go on a speaking tour in the US? That would be interesting. That would be that. Wow, this guy's brilliant mind, and of course him and his team. So they're considering all these things and putting this out there. So somebody said, tell us how many Jews were killed in the last 80 years and in Palestine, please. It is a Christian and Muslim issue, and also a world issue. It says Turning Point is Jewish propaganda. How so? Because Turning Point USA is focusing on matters in the USA. However, a lot of their questions that come as a result of their college campus tours, the questions that come in are about Israel and Gaza and Palestinians and genocide, as mentioned in this letter that we went over. So, yeah, that's just my thought. So it says here, wow, I love that last question. Considered inviting the released hostages, and I think that would be very effective. It said these hostages can talk about how Gazan civilians not once offered any empathy or compassion. President Trump referenced this lack of humanity when some released hostages visited the Oval Office. This was effective messaging. When impactful messaging clicks, keep it going. Also, these hostages and all your spokespersons should be arguing it's Hamas that is committing genocide on their own people by using civilians as human shields and storing weapons in schools, hospitals, etc. That information drips out in the regular media, but it's almost non-existent on social media. Look at who funds and runs these pages. Who funds and runs these pages? What pages in particular are you mentioning? It says, I am Jewish and my favorite orthopedist is Arab and his office is in an Arab village. I especially travel there to see him. I think a lot of, what's happening too is I wonder if a lot of the ones who are speaking against Israel and who actually have either lived there or visited there have actually been to Israel. If they have, here's my question: have they visited Israel or have they lived in Israel when they're communicating this information, or are they just getting their information online? Because those who have most certainly lived in Israel or have visited there or have family there can tell you the truth of the matter because they've actually been there. And that's really what it all comes down to when it comes to the vetting of this information, because a lot of the information that is shared online, some of these people have never been to Israel before. I've never been to Israel before, so I can only go so far as to explain what I can based on the available information online. So that's where my fault is, that I've never been there. I've never lived there. However, there are a few people. Alexandra, you say you live in Israel, so you have a better perspective than those who are watching on the outside. Some of the friends that I know that are Israeli, that live there, that are Jewish, that live in Israel, and they travel back and forth because they have dual citizenship, will tell the same story. You say you don't need to go to Israel, just fact check your feeds and see UN reports. UN is not even the most accurate when it comes to anything regarding the reports. We saw that Hamas was working with the UN to conduct some of their terrorist acts. I'd have to go and find the article so that I can show you what exactly was going down. But they were colluding, or they were that's not even the word, I don't think. They were working with the UN. Hamas was working with the UN to do some very nefarious things. Netanyahu okayed Qatar's $30 million a month to Gaza since 2018, calling it strategy. Later, $4 million went to Hamas military. Sides probed in Qatar Gate. Yeah, look, the funding that is supposed to go to Gaza is to build up Gaza, not to destroy Gaza and dismantle their water pipe systems and anything else in order to create bombs against Israel. There's an ongoing effort for Israel to do anything that they can to keep the Gazan civilians thriving. However, Hamas, being the ruler there, they continue to dismantle that and further their attacks on Israel. So don't believe in the lies when you're saying, oh, well, he okayed it, so it's all Benjamin Netanyahu's fault. You need to read an article and you think you're smart. What's propaganda here? So, as I mentioned at the top of the show, this was going to be an off-the-cuff reading of Charlie Kirk's letter. So I don't have anything that I'm preparing to you guys up front, nor am I going to do any boring research in front of you because it's just going to be boring. What a live show, right? So anyway, so you say, I met an Arab once and he was nice, and the most useless argument is the most useless argument. You're trying to use anecdotal evidence to explain away something that is that the facts completely disagree with. I'm not sure if you're talking about me referring to meeting an Arab once. That's not what I said. So if that's the case, I'm missing some comments. All right. So Alexandra's, she's now questioning. I'm not going to read his name because I think that name is quite, pronounced correctly. You're going to say a word in English that is a curse word, and I'm not going to do that here. However, it could be an actual legitimate name, but I'm not going to pronounce it because I don't want YouTube to take this video down because I'm attempting to say somebody's name that sounds Arabic, quite frankly. I'm trying to make propaganda. You're just making yourself look stupid. Do you have a job or trust rage bait stream all day, bro? Look, if you have any refuting based on anything that I'm saying, bring up the facts in the chat. I'll read them. However, you're just going on about this fact that I'm making this propaganda nonsense campaign, yet you're not bringing any facts here on the chat. So am I really sharing propaganda, or what I'm just trying to tell you is the things that obviously what I'm reading here that is before me, and also the evidence that I'm explaining to you with some of the information that I'm putting out there. I'm not trying to bring any sort of propaganda. You're reading and not answering. What am I not answering exactly? Would you prefer to speak to someone straight up rather than reply to comments? Anything, whatever. I'm replying to you here. So what's the difference? I'm speaking to you straight up, am I not? We see you. Okay, great. You see me. Maybe that's better. Maybe that's better to help your worldview. All right, this is an actual 10 out of 10 rage bait. You're a bottom feeder, but I can't lie. I almost respect it. Look, whatever you're going on about as far as being a rage baiter, I mean, are you raging here? That's not my goal here. I said, if it's not propaganda, speak to someone directly. What do you mean by someone directly? Someone in an interview? Someone, what exactly are you talking about here? So, all right, I'm going to keep on reading here because I'm answering directly. And as I said before, I don't have all the facts to refute any of the things that you're making, the claims that you're making in the chat. That will cause me to go down to a sort of a trail that I'll have to chase in order to bring you the facts, because it's, as Charlie's mentioning in this, having to fact check every single little detail when it comes to everything is not something that is done in a quick second or done in a quick chat GPT search, because most certainly if you try to do those things, you're going to get a lot of the propaganda still, any type of propaganda still given to you through AI messaging. It's not going to be effective. You have to go to the reporting. You have to find out where the reporting is coming from and whether or not it's a reliable source in the first place. So it's sad that you're thinking that this is a bottom feeding rage bait podcast here. That's most certainly not the goal here. Plus, why is reading an article a fact when did Charlie Kirk become a truth teller? Well, however we get the most of information nowadays is by well-vetted articles, by people that have done the interviews. I don't have the resources to be able to contact these people directly. I can try, but most certainly somebody of this type of channel size in getting somebody on the podcast is somebody that is reputable, somebody that has some of this information ready on hand, somebody who talks in this sphere and knows the facts by actual experience or by direct vetting. So look, I'm not the most qualified on this subject. I'm simply reading what Charlie Kirk is saying as to what can be done to combat the information war concerning the claims that Israel is committing genocide. So that's what it is here. So it says, bring someone that goes against what you believe that is qualified so you can be more educated on the topic. Your view is incredibly one-sided and clear to be fed through Western media. Well, I already explained to you how it's not that easy to get somebody who is qualified according to your standard. It's going to be according to your standard. So even then it's going to be a one-sided guy mindset who's not going to even analyze the other side. So how is that going to be beneficial to anybody? You would have to get somebody who is qualified to have both points of views, be able to share both points of views in an effective manner in order to have the type of discussion that you want. But again, this would be somebody that is according to your qualifications. So statistics, somebody mentioned that. Yeah, you're absolutely right. And Charlie Kirk is qualified. Charlie Kirk is dead. He's more alive than ever, being in heaven, but there's no way he can share anything else from this point on. I'll find you someone, don't worry. Find me somebody who's reputable that we can vet and look at their content and see exactly how they're sharing their content. Whether it's one-sided, just like you're calling me one-sided, it's not going to work out. Trust me, it's going to be the same thing. It's going to be the same nonsense of sharing the same one-sided thing. If they're not going to have the same views about one or the other, the same sort of facts that they can point out about one or the other, it's just not going to work out. Said, I look at both sides. The whole thing is a complete mess. It can be. It can be. Is Israel trying to fill a prophecy? I mean, I'm not sure exactly what prophecy you might be referring to, Chris. Not exactly sure. It says, bring someone on call to debate you. That is not something that I'm prepared to do, because in order to have the sort of topics, again, this is all off the cuff. In order to bring the topics that we want to talk about when it comes to genocide or Israel or anything like that, a lot of the stuff that I need to have at the ready in order to combat any of the claims that are being made. Otherwise, it's just going to be obviously a win for anybody that has all this at the ready and at the go. This is not the the podcast to do that. We can do that at another time. So subscribe if you want to have something like that, and we can have some kind of a debate, somebody of a reputable source or somebody who has any type of information regarding this. But again, that's just what you're. It says it is one-sided when you literally discredited. I don't know if that's a typo. Maybe it's not. It says the UN with the most logical reasoning ever, their Bible. No, I don't think they're trying to fulfill anything. There wouldn't be any purpose for them to want to fulfill anything intentionally. If there is going to be anything that is being fulfilled, then it would be just done not out of their knowledge of fulfilling that, because at this moment Israel's mostly secular. Actually, the people are mostly secular, and even then the government is mostly secular. So they're not looking to the scriptures to fulfill any type of prophecies. Is Talmud reputable, please? The Talmud is essentially oral teachings passed down from generation to generation to explain some of the various different things that these scriptures don't explain. So could it be reputable? Sure, to an extent. But when it comes to doctrinal understandings about things like the virgin birth, or if the Messiah, the things concerning the Messiah. So, I mean, I don't know. So you talk about Israel without knowing about red heifers. Are you referring to the comment I just made? Curious? Justice? What about red heifers? The fact that they have brought in red heifers, there's a specific sect of Jews that are trying to bring back sacrifices to the third temple. However, on a Christian perspective, I'll say Christian perspective in just the simpler terms, but in the biblical perspective, I guess we'll say in the New Testament, talks about a third temple that is to be rebuilt. And this third temple that is to be rebuilt will require sacrifice, but in order to also anoint the Messiah when he comes is by the ashes of the red heifer. So it says, so why can't you start with the basics? History exists. The most profound documented history about the conflict is Israeli historians talking about Israeli crimes. We can talk about the basics. We can go all over all of that. We can have all of the information put out there, and then we can have a sort of formal debate. Because otherwise, somebody comes on here and the intention is to debate something that is scheduled, something that is going to be on the specific subject. There's going to be a lot of back and forth, and it'll just be up to you concerning whether you think it's right or not. But you're still going to choose the way that you want to choose. So will it really change anybody's mind? Maybe. I don't know. You just have to trust in God in that. So it says the Israeli government constantly references and cites Jewish teachings to justify their actions, even though it's not right to do so. Judaism as a whole is godly religion. Yeah, in the case like even the last prime minister, what was his name? Gosh, I forget his name. Not Lapid. That's not it. Anyway, so he was also mentioning things such as scriptures in the Bible as sort of to back their claims. However, they're not living like it. If they're not living like how they should be, according to the commands that God gave them, nothing is going to be true as to what they're saying when it comes to quoting scriptures. There's not going to be any weight behind that. He said, and yes, I wrote some really important comments which you glided by and did not approach. Again, there's a lot of comments coming in here. I'm trying to read everything as best as I can. And I have this letter up, and I'm not even finishing the letter because I'm reading most of your guys' comments. However, the main intention of here was to read through this because of the information war that is happening. So I just kind of get stuck in your guys' comments to read this stuff. So when things start going by, and if I'm reading the letter, I'm not checking both because I'm just not. I try as best as I can, but I miss a lot of the comments. And it's hard because if I go back, then I miss any of the new comments, and then it looks like I'm just ignoring everybody. It says it's a Jewish state, so yes, Judeo-Christian values are important. Sub and a double tap screen. Thank you so much, B. I appreciate it. You are always awesome in the chat. You're great. So let's continue on here, and then we can continue to address some of the other comments here. So it says, maybe interview some Israelis on the streets, asking them why they love or what they love about their country. Interview Jews, Israeli Arabs, Druze, Orthodox, secular, etc. Somebody who does this really good to understand sort of the political or the religious aspect of the Jewish mindset of the community is So Be It. The YouTube channel So Be It. Really good. And so it says, ask Israelis what they do with what they wish the world knew about Israel. Ask them to respond to examples of misinformation on social media. This could be an entire social media PR campaign called Dude, You Got Us Wrong. Interview Israelis from all walks of life. Let Israelis explain in their own words how Israel is a pluralistic society, a free country with elected leaders, unlike all the surrounding authoritarian Arab nations. Why not show how your hospitals take care of wounded terrorists? Why not show clips of Israel dropping flyers from airplanes warning Gaza civilians to get out of harm's way? It would have been nice to see an Israeli plane with the Star of David arrive in the U.S. full of supplies after a hurricane. Has Israel offered any assistance to the U.S. Insofar as technology to protect our border or with the missile defense shield President Trump has discussed? These are examples of effective messaging showing Israel as a close ally of America, which I agree. It says consumers of social media are aware of this, of the billions in supplies we send to Israel, but less aware of what Americans get in return. You and your team need to make the argument on social media that Israel is a great friend of America and is vital to U.S. national security. Israel needs to better portray itself as a member of Team Humanity. Israel needs to establish a baseline of her identity, to run an effective messaging campaign, and you need a clearly defined message. This message should be homegrown from Israel. In other words, create original content from Israel, videos and visual feeds, social media. Keep these edited clips short, under 1 minute, and post the best ones on the Israel Truth Network. Don't rely on non-Israeli social media influencers to create all these clips. Yeah, because then you're getting a one-sided propaganda nonsense, right? As those in the chat are saying. Charlie Kirk is genius. This is wild. Of course, we can't just give him all the credit, of course, because yes, he did have and probably formulated a lot of these ideas, but this is, of course, off of the sort of firing back and forth with his team, as he clearly mentioned earlier, that this is what they suggest. Semites first became Jews through Moses. Then came Jesus, also in Palestine, from the same line of Abraham through the mother, and from a different line of Abraham came Muhammad and Islam. Look, Palestine is not even mentioned in the scriptures. So why you're using that language is you're not basing it on any historical documents when it comes to the scriptures being historical documents. It's mentioned as Israel. It's mentioned as the promised land. It's mentioned as Jerusalem or Yerushalayim. So the fact that you're mentioning Palestine is this information campaign to remove the fact that this is actually a Jewish state, because Palestine is only a more modern day representation of the Arab community. However, the origination of Palestine, the language or the name Palestine, comes from Hadrian, Emperor Hadrian, who renames the Jews who renames the Jews because of calling them Palestinians as a derogatory name. And now the Arabs claim it. But the original Palestinians were Jews. Semites did leave Judea Samaria due to Roman persecution, but some Semites did not. They converted to Nasara and Christianity, and later some to Islam. You are supposed to live together there. And you cannot uproot an entire population now because of this kind of persecution is not taught in Judaism and Abraham's religion. Say, nor is Muhammad, he was from Saudi Arabia. Yeah. Yeah, there's a whole document that I want to go over from Dr. J. Smith, who covers this in great lengths. As to the name Muhammad, as to the origins of Muhammad, it says, so what are you even saying? Palestine was mentioned in King James Bible. Well, let's go over the verse. Let's go over the verse. Let's go over the passage and talk about it. All right, so let's get back on this. You know what? I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to continue to read this later on in tonight's podcast, because that's when we have a lot more to discuss, a lot more people to discuss about this matter, and get more feedback on this, because I'm open to hearing your guys' thoughts. Of course, I'm reading your comments out loud and live so that we're not having this propaganda that everybody's calling this show. It's not propaganda. It's simply reading. Well, right now we're just reacting to this letter. I mean, we're not even showing any type of newsletters or outlet articles or any type of statistics here. So therefore it cannot be propaganda. What I'm saying to you has to be vetted. So you should look up what I'm saying if you don't agree with it. So otherwise, we need to be careful, and of course the language that we are communicating here and how we're communicating it. This is something that I take very seriously. And we need to not speak in that manner. So let's see. So here you're referencing Joel 3:4. The specific verse Palestine appears in KJV is specific, is Joel 3:4. King James Version. Okay, so it says, and what have ye to do with me, O Tyre and Zidon, and all the coast of Palestine? Philistia, that's the region. Philistia, that's the name. It says a region on the Mediterranean occupied by the Philistines, extending from Joppa in the north. So I stand corrected in the word being Palestine being in the scriptures. So thank you for that. However, when we're looking at the actual word, it's Philistia, the region occupied by the Philistines, extending from Joppa to the north of Negev. Now let's see if we can do a further word study. It says country. This is a country on the eastern shore of the Mediterranean Sea, also known as Canaan and Israel. Palestine is situated on the west end of the Fertile Crescent. I wonder if I can get more information on that. Now it says
Peleshet.
That is the Hebrew word Peleshet.
Peleshet.
I think it's pronounced, but otherwise, let's look at some more information here. It says, I do a Bible word study. Yeah, so it's referencing Philistia. So now we got to dive deep into the Philistia, into the people group of Philistia. And the only instance that is used here is Joel 3:4. I don't see any other words used, in the scriptures in the Old and New Testament regarding Palestine. But in this instance, it's using Philistia. Now, the other translation, so remember, King James Version is an Old Elizabethan English translation, and the language that was used in English back then is going to resemble some of those types of languages, when we have more modern translations like ESV or NASB, we're seeing the term Philistia, or let's see if we even have, I don't know, NASB, which is close to the Hebrew. So let's see. Where's NASB? I don't have it here. Oh boy. Anyway. So it says, I don't know what is happening here, but I appreciate any discourse that comes from a genuine place. Thank you, SA. Appreciate it. It says, Israel is the size of New Jersey, yeah? And it constantly needs to defend against the tide of Islam. Yeah, it's very small. It's only 300 square miles, right? It's not very big. And their land that they actually are promised is much bigger. So this is also not only were the original Palestinians Jewish, but until the state of Israel was founded, anyone born in the British Mandate of Palestine was Palestinian, regardless of ethnicity or religion. I just came across your channel again. Thanks, I appreciate it. Again, thanks for coming across this. It says, more importantly, Arab Palestine isn't mentioned in the Quran at all, 0 times. Thanks for that, Jasmine. Appreciate it. So yeah, I'd like to dive more into this Philistine reference here as to the name here. It's referencing Philistia, which let's see. Let me see if I can get some more information here. The Aegean people who settled in the maritime plain of Canaan, and the Canaanites. Let's see. So it says most of the knowledge of the Philistines comes from the Bible and the monument records of Egypt and the archaeological excavations of Philistine cities. The biblical information centers in the historical books, but there are references to the Philistines in the prophets and the Psalms as well. This is the historical records of Egyptian kings tell of their contacts with Philistines. Other Egyptians' written sources include Amarna letters, the story of the capture of Joppa and the tale of Mohar, the Harris papyrus, and the adventures of Wen Ammon. Paintings and the reliefs of Philistines are found in the Theban necropolis, and particularly in the temple of Ramses III at the Medinet Habu. Very interesting stuff here. So I'm going to be doing a giveaway tonight. Later on in the podcast, if you guys want to join in at 10:30 or 11:30, we'll be talking more about this stuff. But it says it was an insult given by the Romans to the Jews. Yes, this was Emperor Hadrian. It says, Jackson says, what does the Lord require of you? To act justly, love mercy, and walk humbly with your God. Yeah, I agree with that, Jackson. Thank you. Prove it, YouTube punk. Says, how are you? I will remember asking about Israel yesterday, and then you just came across, and I just came across your yesterday. Oh, that was your message to YouTube punk. Grocery shopping. The spelling you mentioned is how the people in Palestine spell it to begin with. Well, where's the information regarding that statement? They don't call themselves the Philistines. They call themselves the Palestinians. So I don't know. I'm not sure where you're getting your information from, but I hope that we can get more clarification on the statements you're making here. Oh, thank you so much. I appreciate that. Thank you for your sub. And it honestly is the best way to support this channel is just by a sub and a like, a share maybe. That's whatever you want to do. A sub is amazing. So it says, what you don't understand is the Palestinians and the Jews are proven to be the same people even genetically. But the Israeli claim is ideological, even if they claim it is ethnic. Yeah, I think you're going to have to elaborate so I can understand where you're coming from. It says that lady had a passport for Palestine before Israel was a state. Huh? What lady? I'm not sure if I catch your grift there. Yeah. So, okay, guys, I'm going to be doing a live show later on in the day. We're going to be covering more of the rest of this letter in more detail. Hopefully I can provide some better insights for you as we continue on in this live show. Continue just looking at all oh, you sent me a short. Got it. So I'm going to be straight up with you, bro. I won't click any links. This is more for security reasons, so that if anything nefarious is happening, that if anybody sends me links, currently I don't know how to have a way of vetting those links before I can even click on them, because I don't want any sort of I don't know, security threats by clicking on links that I just, even though they seem legit. Honestly, I'm sure you seem legit. You've been pretty close to us on this podcast. You've been following us since the very beginning, and so hopefully we can continue on with these conversations. However, links I generally don't click because I just don't know. I just don't know, man. So otherwise, thank you for sharing that. If you can share me the title of the video that I can find and where I can find it, I will then go to, I'll try to go find it myself. So hopefully, yeah, that's why I explained that. So anyway, guys, some kind of giveaway that we've got going on later, more details to come later in the stream. Stay tuned for around 10:30 to 11 o'clock when we'll go on our usual broadcast timing, and there will be a much bigger audience to debate in the chat, and that's always great because there's a lot of minds to discuss these various topics. But you say just a link to a short, I guess I'll just send screenshots to, or a title. That would be way better, bro, so I can then go and look it up myself. So it says, I'm very pro-Palestine, just being honest. Hope you are all truly interested in protecting humanity and praising God. Well, I appreciate that your comment there, and we're ultimately for the fact that all life is precious and all life must be protected indefinitely, most certainly. And so I just want to make that clear. Now, where the reporting is coming from, who is reporting the facts and who is reporting ill facts or bad facts, we'll want to be sure to cover this on this podcast. So I appreciate it, you guys, and we'll see you guys later in the show, tonight's show, and we'll be going over in more detail on this matter. So I appreciate you guys for joining me for the moment, and see you guys then. Subscribe and like, and we'll talk about all that stuff later. So appreciate it.